Hey guys, welcome back to another command block tutorial. Today's video, I'm going to teach you how to unleash the powers of the Dark Lord. That's right, today's video we're going to be making ourselves into Darth Vader with a couple of really unique abilities, such as deflecting blaster bullets, throwing your lightsaber, and force choking enemies in front of you. Let's unleash the dark side. So, just a quick showcase of what we do have. Just to kind of copy some of Darth Vader's movements, of course he can jump pretty high, he is trained with the Force. He also does seem to glide down anytime he falls down, so we did add that kind of slow glide. Now of course he is in a mechanical suit, so he is kind of slow, so we do have a little bit of slowness whenever you're playing as Darth Vader, but we also have some resistance because that suit is going to give you some extra armor. On top of all of this, we have the actual Force abilities. So, of course, we do have just anytime you're holding a netherite sword, that becomes your lightsaber. Now, I am doing this in pairing with some previous videos that I did, specifically a Jedi video and a Stormtrooper type video. And one of the things that skeletons can do is they can actually shoot you. But if I'm playing as Darth Vader, I can actually deflect all those blaster bullets back at their original target. Now right now I have the damage turned off just for the showcase. You can see here I'm actually blocking every single time and deflecting every single time one of these guys shoots me. And that's just going to be something that Darth Vader can do at base. On top of that, Darth Vader can go up to people and hold them in the air by sneaking. It's going to slowly damage them as he's just levitating them in the air. Now, that alone is not going to do a ton of damage. You're going to need to combo that with some of your other abilities. Of course, you can just pick them up and walk over and punch them. The other thing you can, of course, do is what I kind of showed off earlier, and that is the actual Saber throw. So this is pretty cool. It uses a lot of kind of complicated commands. So basically, all you're going to do is actually drop your sword, and it's going to throw out, and then it's going to come back to you. And the cool thing is, even if you move, it's going to come back to wherever you are, and then it's going to re-enter your inventory. So it's a pretty powerful ability, does a lot of damage, and of course you guys can customize it to fit your own needs. But I hope you guys enjoy. And also, if you guys can hear, we do actually have some custom breathing noises, just to kind of mimic the just terror that I think Darth Vader's presence brings in any content that he's a part of. Without further ado, let's get into the commands. Don't worry, there will be a structure file for this, so keep an eye out for that in my Discord. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is just kind of getting into the animations, because the first part that we're going to be doing is the actual blaster deflection elements type stuff. Now of course this is for me relative to the blaster commands that I did in a previous video, which will be linked in the description. However, you guys could easily modify it if you guys see fit to work for something like arrows. Starting off, we do have two scoreboards that we need to create. You guys can put these in the text chat, or you can just put in a command block and power at once. We do need a scoreboard called anim. We also need a scoreboard called timer. These are both going to be important. Make sure you do that. You just create those scoreboards, or none of the rest of this is going to work. So what we're going to be doing is, for any player that has the anim score of 0, we're going to remove the tag block anim and give them this animation. This basically resets the player's animation after they do a block attack, essentially. And then once we do that, we're going to give them the tag block anim to know that we already did that play animation. Next up, what we're going to be doing is just simply this. We're going to be giving them this specific animation pose whenever their anim score equals 2. Then we're going to be removing the block anim's tag, make sure it's already done the animation. Then we're just doing this secondary animation whenever the animation score is 1, and of course removing that tag. So all that's essentially doing is that making it so whenever I actually get hit with a blaster bullet, in this case it's going to be a boat that's 180 blocks in the air. So we have the first command here that's just checking if the player has the tag Vader. Then we're going to just turn around any blaster bullet. But it's also setting the player's scoreboard to the right number if the player actually gets hit by a blaster bullet. So once again, this is specific to the blaster bullets that I made in another tutorial. So if you guys don't feel like including that deflection system, you can feel free to just ignore this part. But one thing I did forget to mention, you will need the tag Vader, V-A-D-E-R, in order to actually unlock these abilities. Now, on top of all this, we do have some just base effects. So this is just one that's setting everyone's score and M to 0 on a 10-tick delay. But some of the other things that we're doing is just giving Darth Vader a jump boost so we can jump higher, strength so we can hit harder, slow falling so we can glide, resistance so we can take less damage, and the slowness effect. So pretty simple. That's just going to give Darth Vader some of these kind of base abilities. Next up, we actually do have some pretty simple commands as far as the fourth choke is concerned. All we're doing is checking for the Vader. If they're sneaking, they're going to levitate mobs in front of them upwards and have them slowly take damage over time. Now, the damage for me is pretty low, but of course you guys can adjust that to fit your needs. But it really works as a great combo pairing for the actual sword throw. So what we're doing here is pretty simple. If the player is sneaking using this simple sneak detection, we're just going to slowly damage them. Pretty simple, and this is on a 0-tick delay. More importantly, what we're going to be doing is actually teleporting the player up. So once again, this is checking for the same mobs, so in front of the player while the player is sleeping, sneaking, not sleeping. We're going to be just checking, is the block under them air? If not, they're just going to teleport a little bit up. So this is where they're only going to hover a little bit off the ground, not just, shoot straight up into nothingness. Now, that's all you need for the functionality of this. However, there is one thing you can also do if you plan on using this on players. We do have custom animation that is essentially going to make the players look like they're grasping out their throat as though they're being force choked. Unfortunately, this animation doesn't really work for the husks as well as it does for the players, so I have it disabled. But just so you guys can see what it looks like, I will show these commands on screen briefly, but I do have them disabled in this. So we're giving them the tag choke if they're being actually force choked. If they are, we're going to be playing these series of animations that was developed by QH0L on my Discord. So he helped me figure out these animations. Like I said, I'm not really showing them off in this because I'm not doing this against players, but if you do that against players, you can feel free to use those animations. But that is going to be optional. Otherwise, the force choke is just going to work simply without the animations. I gotta say, this saber toss is really fun and satisfying to use. So the saber toss does actually use FMBEs. Of course, we're using a sword instead of an FMBE. So if you've done FMBEs in your previous worlds, you don't need to repeat these command blocks. If you haven't, though, I am going to show all of them, although I'm not going to explain them because I've done that in previous videos. So we simply have a series of animations all going into it. Don't worry, the animations, the play animation commands, I will put in the description, so you don't have to worry about any of the play animation commands. I'm not going to put all the commands, just the play animation commands, though. Oh, skipped one. So all of these are just the base FMBE command block stuff. So this one is specific to the lightsaber. So essentially anything with the tag Saber, that's going to be the FMBE that's actually holding the sword that we're going to be using, is going to be using this animation right here. This is going to get it to the right scale, the right Y positioning, the height, and more importantly than that, we're also going to be adding the spin to it with this command. Next up is just more base FMBE stuff. All of the rest of this stuff is just pretty standard for anything that is an FMBE. Once again, if you have other FMBEs in your world, you don't need to do all of these commands other than the one that has the specific Saber one, which is this one. So other than that, we're just going to give the fox with the name Saber, the tag Saber, and we're going to give it the tag block as well, so that way it registers as an FMBE. Now, this stuff is what we're going to be using the timer scoreboard for. So basically, at a 0-tick delay, we're going to be adding a timer score of 4 to the Saber. Then, when the timer score reaches 108, that's the end of its duration, it's going to replace the main hand with air. This removes the sword from the fox before we kill it, so it doesn't drop. It also doesn't look weird when we kill it. So the other thing that we're going to be doing is giving the nearest player that has the tag Vader a netherite sword. So right before it dies, it gives the sword back to the player. Additionally, we're just going to be teleporting the Saber to the position of this command block so that we can kill it. And then we're going to kill it. This just kills the fox away from the player to make it a little bit smoother. So this is pretty simple too. What we're doing is we're adding the Saber boat with a timer of 2. And then when the Saber boat hits a score of 50, we're going to be killing it. because what's happening with the Saber is we actually are using an invisible boat, not invisible boat, a boat that's really far up in the sky. That's actually tracking the position of the FMBE, and then the Fox is just being teleported below. So that's what you need to know in terms of the FMBE stuff. We do have a couple of stop sounds real quick. So mob fox death, mob fox hurt, and mob fox ambient. That just makes it so the fox noises aren't really playing. You can still kind of hear them sometimes, unfortunately, but it pretty much stops it. So now we're going to get into the actual specifics for how the fox is functioning. So essentially what we're doing is we're checking if there is an entity named Netherite Sword near the player Vader. That means they dropped the item. If so, we're going to summon a fox at the player, and it's going to be an adult, and it's going to be named Saber. Then we're going to instantly give the fox invisibility so that way you don't actually see the fox. At the same time, we're going to summon a boat about 145 blocks above the player. Then we are going to give the tag Saber boat to this boat that is above the player. Then we're going to actually kill the sword item. Actually, before we do that, we're going to play the sound for the throwing. Then we're going to actually kill the sword item. So essentially what we've done is now whenever I drop this item like this, it's going to create a fox in my position, and it's also going to create a boat way above me. The reason that we're doing a boat way above me is because boats can actually copy the Y rotation of the player, whereas most other mobs can't. So this actually gives us a much smoother ability to just kind of throw this straight up or in any direction that we want, whereas using another mob wouldn't. The thing is, we cannot give invisibility to boats, so instead we just throw it really above the player and then copy its rotation downwards. And that's how it's going out. I should mention that's how it's going out. We actually kill the boat when it gets halfway out, and then the fox just teleports itself directly back to wherever the player is for the second half of the throw. After all this, what we're going to be able to do is teleport the fox below the boat as long as the timer is 50 or lower. Then, once the timer score is 50 or higher, it's going to actually start teleporting back facing the player. Then, of course, we do need to give the item Netherite Sword, so that way it's actually holding something to the fox. And we're also going to enchant it with Sharpness 1. This just makes the fox sword just a little bit easier to see, as it has the enchantment glint. Next up, we're just going to be simply teleporting the boat. So, as the boat's traveling along, it's just going to be teleporting forward, pretty simple. Then what we're going to be doing is just running the damage. So this is pretty simple. All it is checking whatever the sword is interacting with, deal 20 entity attack damage, and the damage is going to come from the nearest Vader player. So you can feel free to adjust this number to whatever you want. I liked 20, but you can of course increase or decrease to make your sword throw do as much damage as you want. Then of course this is just another command teleporting it forward again, and the exact same damage command. The reason we're doing this is this allows it to actually teleport fairly fast, but that it's not skipping over entities that it would normally hit as it's traveling along. Because if you have too big of a distance for the teleport, it's just simply not going to actually come into contact with the entities you need it to hit. So finally, we just have a couple of sound effects. So these are of course optional. You can do them if you want, but I think they add to the menacing appearance of Darth Vader. So starting off on a 200 tick delay, we have simply this command right here. This is going to be the Mob Blaze Breathe, but we're going to pitch it down significantly. Then at 46 tick delays, we're going to stop the sound. Then at 50 tick delays, we're going to play the same sound again, but at a different pitch, 0.36. And then finally, we're going to stop it again, and this is on a 50 tick delay. So this kind of simulates the breathing you've been hearing in the background this entire time. On top of this, we're also just going to be playing some random fizz sounds. So the first one is going to be this fizz sound. This is going to be for the saber toss. So we have a bass one and a 9 tick delay sound, which is a bit louder. So this is about to make it a little bit more pulsating, and that just kind of simulates the saber sound. It's not my favorite, personally. I couldn't think of a better sound for it. So if you guys have suggestions for better sounds for the saber toss, do let me know in the comments. Other than that, that kind of sums up what it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys need any help, Of course, feel free to leave comments, but also take a look at the Discord. The link will be in the description. I hope you guys enjoy. This was really fun for me to make and really fun to play with. So I really hope you guys enjoy. And yeah, may the force be with you.